The person who you see in this picture here is the drug-running criminal thug who was likely given an early release from prison to be used in the criminal CSIS harassment campaign that drug-trafficking Freemason Daniel Rogers and drug-trafficking Freemason Michael Duheme have been utilizing against me for over 5 years now. Although it was going on prior to the time when Rogers was in the position, as drug-trafficking criminal psychopath David Vigneault had been in the position as CSIS director at the time that they started the criminal abuse and harassment campaign using Freemason police to stalk me, harass me, mob me to the point where I had to leave one of my jobs, using people to harass me everywhere I would go, using police helicopters to follow me when I would go over to the grocery store, using fire trucks and first responders to stalk me everywhere I'd go. So that began, it went overt in 2021, and that's when things started to become noticeable. But not to digress, this is the person here, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because the person was instructed to provoke an altercation, and he made multiple threats of violence against me. So I want to show you Dan Rogers and Michael Duheme. These are two of the people who are sending people to do this, who are sending people to threaten violence against me, and it's obvious it's because of my videos which expose the truth about criminal drug-running Freemasons like Michael Duheme and Dan Rogers. There have been numerous different occasions when CSIS have sent criminals and a number of occasions drug dealers to make threats of violence against me, specifically because of my documentation which exposes the criminal harassment campaign that they've been running against me for 5 years with real evidence. CSIS also go out of their way to flood the internet, including YouTube, with people who are essentially these drug addicts who they control, or criminals like that guy who they sent the other night, and then they have them go on and pose online and act crazy and just say ridiculous things, and then they have them use the term gang stalking and targeted individuals. So the ones in Canada, almost all of them, CSIS controls them and just puts them out there and pushes them with big YouTube channels because of the influence they have over all social media platforms to discredit the real people who are going through these things. And very, very few of them actually, unfortunately, document these activities and put the stuff out there. And so that's what they do. They use actors. Essentially, they use anyone who they control, who the state controls. They have them use them in deceitful acting skits, like what you see I've shown in those other videos with them just performing theater, and they'll use their own children too. These people are very, very sick. They train their children from a young age to take part in this. So the Canada that you see presented in the media on TV is not at all real. It's completely false. They run cover on this. All the major reporters in the news are either with the females, they're either with the Order of the Eastern Star, or they're the wives of Freemasons. Freemasonry has complete control over our Canadian media, and that's why there's a code of silence, and you aren't allowed to say anything negative at all about Freemasonry. And they cover up all of the crimes that Masons are involved in, obviously. And it comes down to staging all these events that are put out in the news to deceive the public. Recently, Dan Rogers and CSIS have a bunch of people, a bunch of obviously Masons who they've propped up with fake large viewerships on YouTube because they don't even have large followings. These followings are mostly half of them consist of bots. If you look in the comment section, you can just tell. And then others are just people from the Canadian communitarian system who are paid to play dumb and pretend that our political system is real and it's not run entirely by Freemasons who just put on acting skits in Parliament. So recently what Rogers and CSIS and the Fiveeyes intelligence services have been doing, running these ridiculous things on YouTube, these stories with this guy. One recent guy they've been using is this Sam Cooper guy. I'm fairly sure he's a Freemason based on the amount of exposure he gets on all these fake shows run by fake alternative media people. And so his job is basically to push it's China, it's the cartels, with no accountability for the RCMP or CSIS when they're the people who are in charge of supposedly keeping people safe in this country. Yet somehow we're supposed to believe they're so incompetent that they can't stop all hard drugs from getting in with the advanced technology that they have. And that's how you know these people like Sam Cooper, who Rogers and CSIS are hiring to lie about these things to cover up their own crimes. You can just prove they're lying through their teeth about virtually everything, and they're just reciting scripts. So like they bring them out on these fake, basically intelligence agency controlled opposition platforms like Juno News. I don't know if he's been on Rebel News. He might have been. And they bring him out on there, and then they bring him out on these fake podcasts with people who are associated with the trucker convoy, which was run through Freemasonry as well. It's just another psyop. Now, of course, there were some real people who went down there who were deceived by it, but most of it were just their state-funded actors. So Rogers has been funding this guy Sam Cooper to go out and giving him a huge platform to lie in order to cover up the crimes that he and the RCMP and CSIS are all involved in. Not only drug trafficking, but terrorizing their own citizens. Of course, people like Sam Cooper will act like that's not happening, that's crazy, they know nothing about that. Well, if you look at the documentation that I show regularly, it proves those people to be absolute liars as well when they pretend that those things aren't happening and police aren't involved in those things. And so if you see the things I'm showing you police involved in harassing a law-abiding citizen for 5 years, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to make the leap and understand that there's clear evidence they're involved in facilitating the distribution of narcotics as well. And of course it couldn't get into the country if there weren't people facilitating it. You just have to be really dumb to believe any of this nonsense about, you know, the things that Sam Cooper and these other actors are hired to say. Like what, did El Chapo dig a hole into Canada and set up shop? It's preposterous. It's preposterous. They don't have Mexican cartels in Canada. It's utterly ridiculous. Now, what they can do to deceive people with that is get a bunch of actors, set up a staged arrest like a film set, and put it out in their controlled media. That's what they do. And so then there's going to be some gullible people who believe that there are actually cartels in Canada. That's how they do it. They just use actors. And while CSIS, the RCMP, and Canadian police covered with satanic Freemasonic tattoos with the Luciferian serpent and Kabbalah symbolism all over them. Half of the males have that. The females as well, a lot of them. So again, these are the things that Rogers and Michael Duheme are involved in. And getting back to it, that's the criminal who they sent to threaten violence against me. And that's because they're dishonest, dishonorable criminals who attempt to threaten people who expose their corruption and criminality. As well as using violent, low IQ thugs directly associated with the drug trade to harass me and stalk me and attempt to provoke altercations and make threats of violence against me. Michael Duheme and the RCMP have been literally doing surveillance on me inside of my home everywhere I've lived for the past 5 years. Now, I've recorded documentation that shows too many things that lead to the conclusion that this is the case. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't think they put hidden cameras in, but I don't know for sure how they're doing it. It's difficult to tell. But like when you walk outside, like I've showed it many times. Like for example, that other video where I walk outside at like 4 a.m, no one else is there, and immediately the guy who lives upstairs is pulling in. The same events like that have been occurring for 5 years, and I have extensive documentation saved. I don't put all of it up. I have a lot of it saved on USBs as well. You're seeing like maybe like 30 to 40% of what I have put up, because I can't obviously upload all of it, and there's some of it that I don't want to upload. I just want to keep it as evidence. So they've been doing surveillance, invading my privacy, and doing surveillance on me everywhere I've lived for the past 5 years to conduct these harassment campaigns. And they've made it very clear to me they want me to know that that is the case as well. And so that's why I document all of these activities. But I'm just giving examples of further crimes that these people are committing. That's disgraceful. Of course they're going to deny it and lie about it. Or they're going to say, oh, well, we have to watch this person because slander that they made up with no justification. These criminals don't care about laws, and that's why we're being pushed into a situation of lawlessness intentionally, and that's what Freemasonry wants. It's the order out of chaos agenda, where they push us into lawlessness so that it gets so bad that the public cry out for order, and that's starting to happen. We're seeing some of that with these armed police coming in with automatic rifles, these Freemason Toronto cops who lie about everything they do, who are covered in satanic tattoos, who are a part of the drug trade. Admittedly, even in the Canadian media, they've given you some stories admitting to some degree that they are involved in that. But of course, these whole skits that they set up regarding that situation are staged, and you can tell there's no follow-up on it. You just don't hear anything about it because it's all staged, right? It's all lies. It's all staged acting. But so this is all intentional breaking down to force the situation into lawlessness. That's what communitarianism's goal is too. Again, transitioning the responsibilities of police not to upholding laws, but to just doing what is indicated as being in the greater good of the community, arbitrarily declared to be in the greater good of the community, which is essentially communism. It's Freemasons dictating that you can terrorize people that you don't like and people who speak the truth. That doesn't happen in any democratic society. That only happens under despotic regimes. That's what we're seeing here going on now. Also, the way criminals like Dan Rogers and Michael Duheme, just using them as examples, there's others as well, Police Chief Eric Stubbs, others like that, that guy Bryan Larkin of the RCMP, all these people who've been put into these prominent positions, the way they see it is, when you point out they're involved in these criminal actions, they don't see themselves as individuals, I don't think. It seems they just see themselves as part of this mob, this groupthink mob mentality that has been instilled upon them. And there's a process where they instill this thought process on all of these people, and it's probably been done since a young age. So they've been raised with this mentality. It's just a groupthink mobbing mentality where they don't believe they're responsible as individuals for any of the things that they've done. And the reason I'm pointing out specific people as opposed to just talking about the organizations, we already know the organizations are involved, is that these are the people who are responsible at the top for these organizations. And so therefore they're responsible for the activities of the organizations. Again, their mentality is they're not responsible as individuals because they want a situation where they're not responsible for their actions. It's just a groupthink mentality, and they themselves are dictated to as well as far as all of their actions. So they're told exactly what to say and do when they're in front of the cameras. But that's the deranged mentality these people have. Like, they think there's no individual accountability, and in any decent democratic system there is. There's responsibility for crimes that you're committing against people. And so I think that's an important point as well. Also, this whole situation where they have this technology to literally monitor people inside of their homes, I know to some that might sound far-fetched, but I can assure you they do have this. I have too much evidence over 5 years of these things going on, which would indicate that they clearly are be able to see when I'm leaving, when I'm coming home, and that they are monitoring me inside the home as well. They have people do specific noise harassment at certain times. They'll sometimes have people, when you wake up, do noise harassment. So there's too many things that I've documented for it to be in any way random with this stuff. So, but coming back to this whole concept, for years before, they kind of programmed and conditioned people to normalize this, watching people inside of their home. They had TV shows like this Big Brother, which was just a horrible reality show. And I remember speaking to my dad years back and saying, why are you watching this nonsense? Because he and his wife would watch it. And it was just, they were just, we find it, it's just something to pass the time or whatever. And then they told me the name of it, Big Brother, and I said, oh, it's Big Brother from Orwell's 1984. That's what they refer to it as. So the show consists of them watching people inside of a home. Now, again, that's just subconscious programming for the audience to prepare them to normalize that, to be watched inside of a home. And believe it or not, they have large groups of people who they use to actually do this, to monitor inside people's... I don't know how many people have access to be able to see specific people in their homes, but that's the thing, is they've normalized this. They've normalized this criminal mobbing, this invasion of privacy, and they have huge groups of people who think that psychotic things like this are amusing, and that tormenting people and monitoring them in their own home and terrorizing them every time they go out is just amusing. It's just that they turn it into like a game. This is a psychopath mentality, and this is the mentality that they've instilled on the population over years of programming and normalizing a lack of empathy and mocking and ridiculing the misfortune of others. And that's what these criminals, Dan Rogers and Michael Duheme, and these people, this is the system that they're pushing forward. These are absolute psychopaths and criminals with no empathy, monitoring people in their homes, terrorizing them every time they go out, sending groups of steroided up criminal biker gangs. That's another thing too that they're doing now, is they're trying to normalize all these criminal organizations. For example, on YouTube, they have some of these really, really big channels where they're bringing on supposed like former mafia people, and they're just putting them out there, giving them a show like they're just, wonderful people. Really, it's just unbelievable. These are people who supposedly, according to the media, have murdered many, many people, or at least been involved in planning murders of people. And they bring them out, and so they're trying to normalize this, and it's all these criminals, these organized crime syndicates, as well as the biker gangs, have connections to Freemasonry. And that's how you see the whole connections to the media, to organized crime, and to Freemasonry. It's all interconnected. And so they've been trying to normalize these deranged psychotic behavior, monitoring people in the privacy of their home, and just mobbing and swarming people. It's just beyond childish and sick and psychotic. And that's what these people do. That's what they get gratification from tormenting and terrorizing people who they've isolated. And that's how honorable they are, too. They have no honor, no integrity. They only function as a mob because they're so mediocre as individuals. They're so low IQ as individuals. And that's why they hate individuality. They hate people with any type of uniqueness. They hate people who are free thinkers. And that's what they want to destroy. That's what people like Dan Rogers and Michael Duheme want to destroy.